So I want to talk about a concept called attachment to the outcome, and so I want to break that down into what I mean by that. So attachment in this case, the way I'm using it, is kind of almost a Buddhist idea of attachment. You know, the Buddha was big on non-attachment. And attachment, you know, in various ways creates suffering and creates bondage, right? So when we get attached to things, you know, that we can, you know, that's where we lose our freedom. On the contrary, then, when we learn when we learn non-attachment and how to let go of our attachment to things, that creates freedom, or as the Buddhists would say, liberation. Okay, and so that's the intention of this video, is like if we can learn about our attachment to the outcome, which is maybe a thing that's creating, you know, suffering and bondage, then there'll be more freedom. So now on the outcome side of this is kind of like the outcome of like what's going to happen in an event. So if we have an interaction with someone, there's kind of, maybe I'm just going to say there might be two parts to it. Okay, the first part is like we're expressing something, or we're inviting, or we're asking, or we're saying how we feel, or I'd like to do this together, you know, or whatever else. And that, I'm going to call that the offering part, the expression or the offering part of the interaction. And then the response to my offering, whether that's with another person or with whatever it is the outcome. Okay, and so you know, our world is very, our culture especially is very outcome focused. You know, we want results. If we, you know, and in work, we're very outcome. It's like if we're a sales manager, for instance, if we're in sales, getting the sale is the outcome. You know, and so obviously in the real world, we need to get outcomes sometimes. But even when we do that, maybe we don't need to be so attached to the outcome. Because when we're attached to that energy, that outcome, it's a different energy. And people can sense it. It's like they feel like you're trying to control them, or you're trying to sell them, or you're trying to get them to do. And people are really tired of that. You know I am. I'm sure you are too. You're like probably tired of people trying to get you to do things and sell you things and believe things and all that fun stuff. But that's another subject. So I'll bring it back here. And so let me start with a silly example. So the classic example is you know, boy asks girl out on a date. So we'll say it's me, right? So it's like if I ask this woman out on a date, okay, like, hey, would you like to go out with me? You know, like that is the offering. That's like, it's an invitation. It's like, hey, I would like it if you would like to go out, if you would go out with me, you know? And so then her response to that, okay, is going to be the outcome, you know? And that's a little simplistic, but I wanted a simple example, you know? And so, so what can I control in this situation? I can control my offering. I can't control the outcome as much, okay? And it's going to be a much cleaner invitation if I'm not, if I do detach from the outcome and I'm not trying to control the outcome. You know, attachment to the outcome is a nice way of saying really controlling the outcome. So if I try to talk her into going out with me, or manipulate her, you know, or make myself cooler than I am, and you know, then that stuff is attaching to the outcome, and it's not as clean. And the bummer for me is, well, it's certainly probably not fun for her, but the bummer for me is, it's like I don't really know if she wants to go out with me, or whether she's responding to the various, you know, control things that I threw out there, you know. And so anyway, that's kind of a different subject too. So when we focus on, now I said our culture is really focused on the outcome, and kind of the way we were conditioned is largely focused on the outcome. I know I was. It's like I was taught you get results and that type of thing. As we get more healthy, okay, we start bringing it back to what I feel and what I want and what I would like to happen. And we're more honest with that. And it's like, I would, would you like to do this? Would you like to go out with me? That's pretty clean. It's just like, I'm feeling this. I would like this to happen. Okay. And then if I let go of the outcome, okay, that's trickier because then it gets much more vulnerable, right? Because I'm exposing what I want. I'm exposing how I feel. Okay. And then there's vulnerable, and the less we control the outcome, the more vulnerable we're gonna feel. I'm just being transparent here. It's like there's a lot of liberation here, but you probably will feel more vulnerable if you just focus on what you feel and what you want and what you're inviting the other person to do. And this is as we get more healthy emotionally and psychologically, we start focusing more on ourselves, and it would be like less codependent and less controlling, right? It's more about us. Because what we tend to do is because we focus on the outcome, we project a lot of ourselves onto the other person, and we make it more about them. Like, they need to do this. Like, you really need to do this. And it's just like, well, hold on a minute. Whose need is that? Like, that, if I start walking that back, why do I need them to do this so badly? It's really more about me than it is about them. So if I kind of walk that back, and this is kind of like, what is my attachment to the outcome? I want her to do this. I don't want her to do that. The don't want her to do might be a fear. Okay. And this is so we start walking it back, like, why do I need her to do this so badly? Why do I need them to like me so badly? Is like, maybe they don't like me. And is that really about me? That's more about them. But it's like, if I need them to like me, then that's attachment to the outcome. And then rather than being myself, okay, I'm going to start being things and doing things to get that person to like me. And that's when it gets codependent and it gets controlling and it gets messy, and it creates a lot of suffering for the other person and ultimately for ourselves. And so the invitation is to focus more on the offering and to let go of the outcome. So the last thing I want to kind of relate this to is responsibility. So I was talking about the way we were conditioned, and the way I was conditioned. I was conditioned, okay, to really be focused on the outcome and be focused on the other people that I'm interacting with rather than myself. Okay, and so I was conditioned and taught that I am responsible for what other people do. Okay, and so when you start working with this, and for me, I was looking at these codependency issues and my attachment to the outcome, is I started bringing it back, and I had to redefine like what I was responsible for and what I'm not responsible for. Okay, so it's like, I'm responsible for sharing what I feel. I'm just going to throw some stuff out there. I'm responsible for what I would like and what I see and what I hope happens. What I'm not responsible for is whether they agree with me or whether they do that with me or whether they, that's not my responsibility. Even if it's a healthy thing, even if I say, don't do this self-destructive behavior, it might be with my clients. It's like, you don't have to do that. You might enjoy your relationship a lot more if you weren't attached to the outcome or whatever it might be. And they're like, nah, I don't really want to deal with that. Well, see, in back in the day, I used to take big responsibility for that. It's like, if I didn't get them to do that and to get that lesson or whatever else, I felt like I was a failure as whatever, a therapist or a coach or whatever role I was in at the time. And so that's a real, I had to redefine what I'm responsible for. When I'm a coach, it's like I'm responsible to open the door, and then I can let go of the outcome, and then I can let go of what they do with that. So what they do with it is not my responsibility. My responsibility is to lay it out really clearly so it opens a doorway and gives them the possibility of doing something. Now that's just the coach version of it, but it applies to everything else as well. And there's a lot of liberation. It's like, so one of my self-inquiries that I do, is like in this interaction, like, what am I responsible for? What's my job and what's not my job? And that's really, it's a really cool way. When I've dealt with a lot of these different codependency issues, the coach that I've been working with, she like lays it out in terms of responsibility. And it's really cool. It's like, she's like, nope, that's not your responsibility. I'm kind of scratching my head, but it sure seems like my responsibility. She's like, no, not yours. Not your responsibility. And so I'm like having to redefine what I'm responsible for, because I thought I was responsible for all these things outside of me that I'm really not. And it creates suffering because I can't control those things, and it's probably better if I don't even try to. So anyway, that is my video for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome week and you enjoy your summer. And that, and maybe throughout this week, you just kind of use this lens a little bit of like, am I attached to the outcome? And why am I attached to the outcome? And what about me is comfortable or not comfortable with that? And what am I responsible for in this interaction? So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in a week.